The Marketing Futurist Podcast, Episode 10. Mind-blowing inspiration to create and innovate. This is your Futurist advantage.
Welcome to the Marketing Futurist Podcast, where your hosts, Mary Catherine Johnson and Kelly Garrett, chat with innovators who are keeping the human in marketing while driving the future of tech to give all of us a futurist advantage.
Welcome back, Marketing Futurists. I'm Kelly Garrett, and I've got Mary Catherine Johnson with me. And our guest today is Brennan Dunn. I am so excited to have Brennan on. He is from Right Message, and I think I'll just let Brennan start it off and just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing.
Sure. So thank you both for having me, first off. Excited to be here. So quick backstory, I guess. So my background is I started out my very first actual company. It was a company that generated leads for mortgage brokers and real estate agents. And little did I know it, but I was dabbling into the wonderful world of personalization back then. What we were doing is we were taking a stock template, running ads to it, and on the fly tailoring the template to have the branding and the photo and everything else for one of our mortgage customers. And we generate the lead, we deliver to them in real time, and it worked really great. And then the subprime mortgage fallout happened, and the whole business kind of evaporated overnight. So that's what got me into freelancing and consulting. I ended up working briefly at an agency and then moved up to Virginia from Florida, where I started freelancing, decided to start an agency because I was getting a lot of referral work, but I could either turn away work or grow a team. So I decided to grow a team, got that to 11 employees, and then I got bored of consulting and wanted to run a software business again. So I like the idea of having a lot of people paying me a little bit of money versus a few people paying me a lot. So I started a company called PlanScope, which is a project management app built for consultants and agencies. I ran that for a bit. And then the hardest thing about that, which is I'm sure we'll be getting into this, was getting customers, getting people to actually buy the thing. So that's what led me into, content marketing. And I write a lot of content, share anecdotes about my own experience running an agency. That worked a little too well. And then that turned into like writing a book and then creating courses. And then before I knew it, there was this little thing that was supposed to be for lead generation for PlanScope that was doing about $1 million a year. And PlanScope was just suffering and not getting any attention. So I sold PlanScope in the beginning of 2016, and I've been on Double Your Freelancing since. And one thing that led to Double Your Freelancing doing so well was because we're targeting freelancers, and you could be either a designer or a developer or a marketer or a writer or any different type of freelancer. I started thinking, well, what if we could make it so when people are viewing like a sales page or getting an email from us or just really looking at anything, if I know that they are a designer and they're an agency and that they're looking for help with X, what if I could change parts of the website based on that? So that's what led me into building kind of the tooling that now has become my newest venture, Right Message, which is a way to make it really simple to personalize your website based on who somebody is. So that's the backstory.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a wonderful, path of things that led you to where you are. And I think it's interesting. It's just so fascinating to me to hear, how different people get different places.
Yep. Sorry, I was moving my mic. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Cool.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay.
The mic was pointing like that way. So it's one of those unidirectional ones. So I wanted to make sure that you can hear me okay.
Yeah. No worries.
Cool.
Yeah. So, okay. So you've kind of done a little bit of everything, and then you've done a lot with Drip too. We had Bob Jenkins on from Drip as well.
Okay, yeah.
And you're kind of, I don't know, an evangelist for Drip, I guess. I don't know what people.
I was customer number 2, I think, and I remember back when it was a little side project of Rob Walling, and I've known Rob for a while, and he was trying to get me to switch off of Infusionsoft. So I decided to give it a shot. It wasn't right. It wasn't built out enough to make me switch, but I kept it for about a year. And then it got to the point when they shipped workflows, the visual workflows. Then I decided to quit Infusionsoft and Yeah, so I've been a big fan of Drip. I mean, I'm good friends with the team, and it's been great seeing that product mature and develop.
Well, I can just say when your name came up in the conversation, it kind of spoke to the fact that we needed to speak to you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Bob's a great guy. I mean, the whole team over there at Lead Pages and Dripper. I was just at their conference in Minneapolis a few weeks ago, and it's always good getting to see them. They're doing a lot of. They're really a good crew. I don't know if you've met them in person, but they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in Minneapolis. I live in Minneapolis, so I've been to, both of their conferences, and
yep.
It's an amazing company. So talk a little bit about how do you go about doing something like personalizing a website for customers, for visitors? How does that work?
It's not easy, but there are a few different things. It's good timing that we're doing this, because I'm writing a pretty big article right now about, I think it's at 4,000 words currently. It's all about how do you, given you've never done any personalization, you've never really done any advanced segmentation, how do you start to personalize? Because at the root of personalization is segmentation. You can't, if you want to speak differently to different people, you need to have a way of systematically saying, Mary is X, Kelly is Y, and be able to know that and be able to react based off that. So you start with segmentation, and I look at an email marketing app like Drip as the single source of truth for most companies about things like what somebody's bought, demographic information that you might have about them. Like if you keep it all in a tool like Drip, or really any email marketing app, you can then use that almost like a database for your website. So it's a little easier when you're sending emails, because if you're sending emails out of, say, Drip can ask Drip, like, hey, do they have this tag, or do they have this custom field set to X? And if so, send them this email or show them this paragraph of text or something like that. But it gets a little harder when now they're out of their inbox and onto your website. But most of us, especially if we're selling online, we're probably driving people from an email we send them back to our website to buy or to read a sales page or something. So it makes sense to try to have continuity between the two. So the way to do that, the way I started doing that was really simply just doing things like, so I was using Infusionsoft at the time, and I ended up writing, which is never the right answer, but I ended up writing a lot of custom code to make it so Infusionsoft would pass over the contact ID of the person. And then I would just hit their API and say, tell me everything we know about this person. What tags do they have? And then I'd say things like, if they're a customer, show this, but if they're not a customer, show that. And if they're anonymous, show this. So you can do things like, say they're reading a blog post of yours. And this is a pretty typical model, is something like, you have a blog, you create new content. As you create new content, you email that content to your list so they come back to your blog. But also the idea is maybe they'll share it with people, or Google will send it traffic, and then you'll have anonymous people who are not on your list viewing that content. And the problem that most of us make is we have the same call to actions depending on, if you're on our list, not on our list, a customer, not a customer, it's all the same. And I don't know if you've ever been on a newsletter and you get an email for a new article and you click on the link, you go to their site, you get hit with this welcome mat and then this pop up and then the slide up and like all these different things. And it's like, you just emailed me. Why do you want my email address? Right. It's
right.
Stupid. Yeah. But, so that's what kind of led me down this path, was saying, well, what if we can make it so if we can just include something in the link that we send to our site, a little personal identifier. And then if we can then in real time pull that information from, say, Drip about that person, and then just have stuff on our site that it will say, like, if they have this tag, show them this, or don't show them that, or something like that. So the unfortunate part is, without either coding or buying software, it's not easy to do this. One thing that you can do, which I've seen people do, and this is actually something that I usually encourage people to do who are just starting out, would be, let's say you're doing a big sale, right? So you're emailing your whole list and promoting something like Black Friday, right?
Sure.
So you're doing a big sale. And then let's say that you have 3 different kind of core personas that you target. So maybe you've got, so I'm actually working with a friend who helps people learn how to invest, right? So he's got people who are looking to invest because they want to make a lot of money that they then spend to buy nice things. You have people who want to invest for retirement. And then you have people who want to effectively day trade and make it a career.
Sure.
So you have 3 different segments, and he's selling a product that can help them all, but they each need to be spoken to a bit differently, right? They have different needs that will make them want the product and so on. So what he's doing is, and you just say, like, if they're a part of segment A or persona A, then drive them to sales page A. If they're B, go to B. And you literally just copy and paste the sales page a few times, and you tweak the testimonials, and you tweak the headline, and you tweak some of the language, and so on, and maybe the way that you describe the product. And it doesn't need to be that complicated. It can just be a really simple thing where you're saying, if they, let's say that you're collecting data when they opt in. So let's say you ask them, like, when they join your list, do you want to do this because you want to save for retirement? Do you want to make a lot of money so you can buy nice things? Or do you want to become a day trader? Like, let them choose when they opt in, and then use that data down the line. That's like a really basic, like, V1 elementary way of doing it, but it works. It works really, really well, because the idea is, if you were talking to somebody at a conference, let's say you're at like a Converted Lead Pages conference, and you're meeting somebody in the hallway, and you sell this kind of thing that helps people learn how to invest. If I'm speaking with you, I'm going to probably, if I'm trying to explain to you what I make, what I sell, I'm going to take into account what I know about you, or maybe questions that I'm going to ask you. And this is like how we do things offline. We listen, and then we react. We look at behavior. We look at what's the relationship we already have with this person. Were they a referral? If so, what do I know about them? And we all do this online or offline, but we don't really do it online. Online, we're basically saying the same thing to everyone at scale, right, which is okay. But it's, if you want like the tried and true principles of how have things been sold since the dawn of time, it's been based off of, who are you? What do you need? And how can I take what I've got and help your need? So, right, on the one hand, you could go and you could really super niche and go like all in on a certain problem for a certain type of person. And that works, but at the exclusion of everyone else. So the idea here is it's a way to kind of niche at scale, if that makes sense. Right. And it's really effective. I mean, we're collecting a lot of data now on just the kind of, companies like Amazon, they do this.
Right,
Target does this. Target, there's this whole controversy that they got into. Have you heard, Target, I think is in Minneapolis.
Yeah, yep.
Did you hear about the thing from 2012, that issue that they had with the, how they were determining if people were pregnant based on what they were looking at online?
Yes.
Yeah. So they would look at like,
you'd find out in the store that you were pregnant before other people in your family even knew.
Well, there's a story of some like teenage girl who was looking at like the right things, and then she started like in the mail, her family started getting stuff on like pregnancy outfits and stuff. Yeah. And the dad, I think, called them really complaining about like, why are you doing this? Like you why are you sending this stuff? Like, she's 14 or something. And then she ended up being pregnant. But so it's one of these things where like there's a lot you can do, that you can get really minority reportish very quickly with a lot of this stuff. But right, the way I look at it is, if I'm buying something, if I'm looking to buy, if I'm on your website and I'm engaging with you in some way, I want to put as little brain power as necessary into thinking like, can this help me? I want to be told this is exactly how it can help you based on X, right? So the more we can make it so the person on the receiving end doesn't need to actively think about like, okay, so this is this product. I need to think through how can this actually help me? And that's why you end up with these really long sales pages with these huge FAQs and everything else, because we need to kind of shotgun our way into selling. And this really has rung true for me because, again, with my business that helps freelancers, I remember I got an email from a copywriter who was reading over my course on pricing, and she was somebody recommended it to her, and she's looking at the sales page, and she sees testimonials from developers and web designers and so on. And the language, I'm a developer myself, so the language is very, developerish, I guess. And she sent me an email. She's like, hey, I've heard good things. It looks like it's targeting developers and designers. I'm a copywriter. Can this help me? And I was able to salvage the sale because I was like, look, it's a course on how to sell services to other businesses. It's agnostic to what it is you do. But, I knew that for everyone who had that question and wrote in, there's probably like 1,000 people who thought that and closed the tab, right?
Yeah.
So And that's why I think a lot of people are turning to chatbots now, because the whole idea of a chat, like a little widget thing, is the idea is, oh, I still have a question. I'm going to maybe type it into this thing. But then you're entering a thing where, will they get back to you in the time period that you like? Will they get back to you tomorrow? Or like what? It's not. It's still. There's a lot of cognitive overhead still that goes into needing to type your question. So if I can just be told point blank automatically, here's how this will help you based on the way I've behaved or what I've consumed in the past, what I've bought in the past. If I bought product A and I'm looking at product B, show me how this relates to what I've already done with you in the past, right? Mm-hmm. So that kind of stuff is why I think it's so important. It's just it hasn't been easily accessible for people really until now. I mean, you can do what I said before, which is if they belong to group A, go to sales page A, group B, sales page B. But then what happens when you have multivariate stuff and you want to say, if they are this, and this, then change this respectively, then that. I mean, now you're looking at hundreds of variations to a single page, and that gets very unwieldy very quickly.
Right.
So, yeah.
Kelly and I know about that because we both create bots. And when we are trying to segment people in a bot, it can get huge very fast.
Yes, exactly.
Right. And so in that sense, like what you were talking about, that's brilliant. And I know that all of us are looking to go that direction because even though we've all been told niche down, that's wonderful. And we definitely want to serve specific people, but this will allow us, because no matter what, you can't, not everyone in the banking industry falls in the exact same category, or not everyone in online courses is going to fall in the same category. So we still need to segment people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so to be able to take that information and, I want to make sure I understand you. You can actually take and on a page, take portions of that page and replace them based on data. Amazing.
Okay. So that's what we've built, and I built it.
Mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, I hate saying the next big thing, but I really do think that it's kind of the middle ground between high touch sales and low touch sales, right? Like low touch is very, I'm reading a brochure, right? And I need to, you can't print out a unique brochure for every person, right? Like it's unfeasible, right? But then on the other side, if you're talking to any salesperson who's worth their salt is going to take into account who you are, and they're going to tailor their pitch based off that. And that's what we're saying is like psychologically it works. It's been working forever, but let's make that happen in a way that scales and is more automated.
We're actually taking the person out of the personalization.
Exactly.
So in that sense, I don't have to personally talk to each of these prospects to figure it out. I can actually do this technologically.
Yeah. And you can still, you'll probably still have people who are
of course
writing in and so on. It allows you to, it's just a conversion optimizer. That's really what this is. Right. And I've seen firsthand, I've been able to get a 70% increase of sales across the board just by doing this, which takes, the first time I did it, it was very basic. And the thing I'm doing now, I'm using my own tool, Write Message, to do this, but we have 9 different data points that we're collecting through an email course. So you join an email course, and then there are worksheets attached to each lesson. And when you complete the worksheet, we store data that you chose on your profile. So by the time you get to the sales page, like a week or two later, we're using 9 different data points to dynamically alter the headline, the case studies, the testimonials, the way we position the offer, the language. So if you go incognito to the sales page, it'll say freelancer all over, right?
Sure.
But if you tell us you're a design agency, then it'll swap out every usage of the word freelancer to design agency. And it's because people want the product built just for them. And we don't need to necessarily come up with a bunch of different variations of the product that we're selling. Instead, we're relating, if you think of like, I've always looked at sales as being like an aligning thing, right? I have a need, I have a offer, right? And sales is the alignment between the two and showing here's how your need can be helped by my offer. There's a lot of products that are you can sell the product, but people have different reasons for buying that are different. And the more we can speak directly to those different needs, at scale, the better it is for them and the better it is for us, because we get more sales, but we get customers who conceptually understand why it is this helps versus them needing to figure out how can this help? And anytime anyone's asking themselves, can this actually help me? You're introducing risk to the equation, right? You're adding a lot of risk there where they're thinking, well, maybe this won't help me.
And barriers. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really a win-win for everybody because they're happy with the experience. Right. They're happy with the information they're getting because it's so personalized, and we're getting easier conversions with less effort on our part.
Exactly.
And I've got to ask you really quickly though. So you're talking about this is just in the sense of the things that we do now. So this is like a Ryan Levesque ask formula meets lead pages. And that is right message is what you're saying. And
exactly.
So what I need to do though is, let's say, so we're segmenting people, we're allowing them to come in and basically choose their own adventure. Yep. And we are providing the exact adventure that they're writing for themselves with our product, sounds like.
Yep.
So flippin' cool. Anyway, so, but then there's got to be a happy medium between the effort we have to put in to creating that for our customers and the seamlessness that it is, that it seems to them. What pitfalls are there in this? What are the difficulties that we're going to have to, as marketers, as business owners, that we're going to have to tackle with this new thing?
A lot of this is truly understanding so the old way was you come up with really good baseline copy that equally applies to everyone and hopefully is good enough that it has broad appeal, right? The thing that needs to happen here, and this is the hardest part for us in selling this, is the education side. It's not, everyone conceptually gets it. It's about the overwhelming question of where do I start? Yeah. So with what we're encouraging people to do is to do a lot where we're helping facilitate this within the software itself, but there needs to be a lot of more qualitative discussions happening where, say you do something simple as somebody joins your list and you ask them point blank, hey, tell me a bit about who you are and why you joined and what you want from us, right? So say it's in like a PS at the bottom of an intro email. Well, when you get these responses, they're going to be probably plain text or replies to an email.
Yeah.
The thing that needs to happen is this needs to be normalized over time into something where you can say, these are the discrete segments that keep coming up. So with Right Message, for instance, we realized we're getting people who are either in software, in information marketing, consultants, or e-commerce. Those are like the 4 big groups that kept coming up. And then we were able to start to see over time, like, what is the language that e-commerce people use that consultants don't use, right? Mm-hmm. So consultants talk about, for them, it's they like this for their clients, right? It's more so not for them, it's for upselling it to their clients. So when we describe the product to a consultant, we're talking about how it's a competitive advantage for them versus everyone, instead of just selling them a website, sell them a reactive website that will speak more directly to people. We're selling the same product, but it's positioned differently. And we're also able to look at like business intent. So say somebody, when they join our list, we ask them like, what is it you're looking to do with personalization day one? And we give them a list. And when they choose one, we're using that data to then make it so all future communication is based on that. So if they're saying that they're looking for more top of funnel conversions, that's their big bottleneck right now. How can the Right Message help them increase overall subscriber rates? Whereas if they're looking to get more subscribers and customers, we then focus more on that. But a lot of that meant doing the due diligence of going and talking to a lot of customers, and not only talking to them to get like generic like overviews of the language and the pains and everything else they have, but to break these down and to normalize them into discrete segment associations, right? So like, what are the things that certain types of people keep saying? And like in my world, freelancing, like designers often use the word project budget or to describe the price, right? A copywriter might use the word fee, and a web developer might use the word rate, right? So like it's all the same thing. It's all like the money getting paid, but it's different language, there's a different glossary being used in all these different kind of for all these different types of people.
Right.
I'm just sitting here thinking, our whole society is going toward making everyone the same. right? I mean, this is
Right.
kind of the way it is. We're trying to make
Right.
everyone equal, everyone the same. But really, in our world, we are still segmenting ourselves because
Absolutely.
that's how we are. That's how we buy. We look at the world differently based on who we are and what we do in life. So how are you handling, or how do you think we can handle as business owners, messy data? So there are going to be people who come in and say, well, I'm going to play around with this a little bit because this is really cool. Or I'm in my mind thinking of my e-commerce client. So even though I'm a consultant and I'm answering your questions as if I'm that e-commerce client. So now you think I'm e-commerce. So how are you handling that difficulty?
So I'm not a big fan of, there's kind of the creepy personalization where you're doing things like, hey, Mary from wherever it is currently Tuesday or whatever today is. Yeah. Like that's kind of stuff that it's more of a gimmick than anything else.
Right.
So a few things that we're doing, because that's a good question. My issue with, while I like Ryan's method, while I like assessments and quizzes as a way of capturing data, I'm actually more interested in behavior. So it's one thing for you to tell me this is what you want. It's one thing for you to tell me this is who you are. I'm more interested in doing things like, so for instance, one thing that we've been doing is, let's say you're running remarketing ads to your list. So you load your list as a custom audience in Facebook and you're running ads targeting them. Well, Facebook's not going to let you say, given an email address, tell me everything that you know about that. They don't do that. However, you can say, I'm targeting this list, this custom audience, but I'm going to break it down into a few different campaigns. One of which is going to target people who are just women. One is going to target people who are women between 18 to 30. One women 30 to 50, and so on, like all these different things, right? Or by interest or whatever else. And then what you can do is you can make it so in the ad creative itself, in the click-through link, you can annotate the outbound URL with data about the segment that you're targeting here, demographic segment. And then what you can do is then you can make it so when they say you're promoting a new article or some like webinar that you're doing or something, you can kind of piecemeal progressively profile them over time using data that they've already stored in Facebook, which we assume is pretty authoritative usually, right? That's one thing. But then I also do things like, for instance, if they, like in my case, right? So I look at two things before I know who they are. I look at two types of behavior, one of which is who sent them to me, and the other is what are they reading. So when they see my lead magnet, my call to action, if they originally were reading an article on a web designer blog, and they're reading an article and it talks about like links to maybe an article that I've written, right? So they're reading an article on, say, I don't know, getting clients or something. And then there's a link saying, oh, and you should check out Brennan Dunn's stuff on proposals or something. And they click over. What I'm doing behind the scenes is I'm saying that if somebody comes from a web design blog, I'm going to assume they're probably a designer. It's not a guarantee. It's not scientific in any way. And I'm not going to say like, hey, designer, or anything like that.
Right.
Even though I kind of do for this and it's worked. Because again, you're going to, it's one of those things like you don't want to be 2 point blank. Right. So you can do slight changes. So
you're
what I
kind
do
of weighting it. It's not just this is data and I'm taking this data, but you're also weighting that data a little bit.
Well, that's what we do. We have confidence
it.
scoring in Right Message where you can confidence score the likelihood that they're in a segment. And the more actions they do that are more likely of putting them in a certain segment.
Right.
So you can say things like, if we're 50% or more certain that they're a designer, show this. If we're 80% or more, now show this, like say Scream designer or something, right? So you can do like interesting things like that. So we're doing a lot of behavioral things. That's my big thing. I mean, it's one thing to get explicit, survey them and everything else. That's great. I think, that stuff works well. But I really like things like, so for instance, we've done things where we look at where they came from. So say a design blog sent them, and then they start reading articles primarily about proposal writing. We're going to make the assumption that they're probably a designer who needs help with proposals. They're not reading stuff on pricing. They're not reading stuff on scaling an agency. They're reading stuff on proposals. So when they go to our homepage or they see the footer call to actions across the site, it'll literally say designers : learn how to close more proposals. And that's the call to action. And then if they start doing other things like reading articles on pricing and eventually that wins out, then the call to actions language shifts based off that.
Right.
So we've been able to see, I mean, this is why I am really big into this stuff, because it's a lot easier to optimize than it is to acquire more qualified people. So we've been able to get, just from doing that, where we're saying, guess what type of business they run based on where they came from or what landing page they landed on organically. Since we don't get keyword data from Google, the next best thing is looking at where do they land on and what can we infer based on that. So we take that and we look at behavioral consumption. So what kind of category of content are they reading? And then we just relabel the language on the call to action. And that's gotten us a 250% increase in conversions from visitor to subscriber, which I'm really happy about.
Yeah.
I think I would be too.
Yeah. So, but I mean, that's the kind of thing where I'm like, I mean, it makes sense why that works. I mean, why do content upgrades work so well? Because if you're reading an article about starting a business and there's a lead magnet that says, get the checklist about how to start a business, those things great, like oftentimes get 10, 20% opt-in rates because they're so super specific to what they're reading. Right. So it's the same concept. It's all about relevancy, is making the thing that you're asking them to do more relevant to them. And that's all we're doing, and trying to make that so whether we're taking explicit data like we're getting through a survey, or we're getting data passed in from, say, a remarketing campaign on Facebook, or we're looking at on-site behavior, combining all that and being able to say, what can we tell about who somebody might be, and then acting on that data and saying, we think if they're a designer, we want to change out testimonials and then change maybe this language over here or something like that, right? To be other designers. Yeah. So that's basically what it sounds straightforward, and it is. It's just it's one of these things that it makes total logical sense why this works.
Yeah.
Like, almost so simple. Why have we not done this before?
And it's always simple. It's just not easy.
Yes.
We've talked about this before several times. It's simple, but it's not easy. And all right, you're sold. I'm sold. You don't need to tell me anymore. Right message is what I need. I need it for messenger funnels because I know people are landing on my site who need to have a chatbot built for them. And I know other people are landing on my site who want to learn how to build a chatbot.
Yep.
So I know I need that.
And you have the done for you. Yeah.
I know I need that. That is a perfect example of being able to do that, because that's the age-old difficulty with a business like that, where people land on it because they're interested in the topic, but they could need both, and some people actually do need both. They need it done for them in the beginning, and then they need their team trained on how to do it so that they can take it in-house. So we need all that data. But so the future is here, obviously, which is incredible. I keep saying that, but I just can't even believe we can do this. So, but where are we going next then? So if this is something we can do now, what's next? Where is this leading us?
That's what I was going to ask. So even, beyond websites, what's next after websites? What do we personalize then?
I think we still have a lot of way to go with this. So the issue with this is it's still effectively a giant Mad Lib, right? Where we're saying like that. It's basically like fill in the blanks, right? I think what will be most interesting, and this is actually our end goal with what we're doing, is to be able to say, what are the common, instead of needing to explicitly say that people who behave this way should get this in response, what can we do with, for instance, machine learning? And that's why we're organizing a pretty solid engineering team of actual data scientist type people.
Nice. Yeah.
What can we do to make it so, this is where long term, what if instead of needing to swap out sentences or words or examples, what if we could somehow feed in a default and then have something that is aware enough of grammatical stuff to modify it slightly based off of inputs, right? So instead of needing to say so for what I'm needing to do now, with the 9 different data point sales page example I gave, is it's literally I'm doing find or replaces. So I'm saying, let's say they are a designer, right? Or actually, no, I should say, I run the agency or freelancer one first. So the default, the web page by default with no right message on it is talking to you as a freelancer. So then I look at the data field in their email marketing app record of what kind of sizes of their business. Are they a freelancer or an agency? And I say if they're an agency, I want to replace the word freelancer with agency. So if I just have that, now when they're reading it, it'll talk about, you as an agency. But then the next pass, the next layer is saying, if they're a designer, we want to swap out the word freelancer with freelance designer, or agency with design agency. So it's not as much as just adding a word, because we flip the word order. It makes sense. It's there to say design agency, not freelance, not agency designer, right? Doesn't make any sense. So there's that stacking effect where what ends up happening is you have all these different passes being made, right? And then the final page is outputted, which is what the viewer sees. So there's a lot of these different things saying, if this is true, change this, 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 and this, but that could stack on top of an existing change. But what would be great would be something a little more, and again, this is way down the road, very premature, but to have something that was less you needing to say, find this word and change it to that word, and be able to have it be a little more almost like generated copy that is seeded by data, right? And again, that's a big challenge to fix that, but or to make that happen. But that's what we're thinking, is being able to do that across the board. And email copy, web page, I mean, it doesn't, the medium doesn't matter that much, but yeah, I mean, across the board. And I mean, you kind of already see that. I mean, there's like, look at the personalized postcards that get sent out by whenever there's an election, right? Like there's elements of this already happening. It just hasn't been accessible really to, like, you go to Amazon's homepage, like the two of you have different homepages on Amazon than I do, right?
Yep.
Completely.
I mean, that they are doing this. They know, I don't know if they go as far as to changing product copy. They might, but they're doing this. And I mean, that's literally Netflix's business model, is saying, don't make people browse, show them, here's what we think you're going to like. So you're already seeing this. It's required either an engineering team or, basically an engineering team, or you don't do it, or you just have a static, this is what everyone sees thing. And the thing for me as a developer, my training is developer turned marketer, is, you go into Facebook and it's personalized to you. It's all your friends, right? And then you go to some bakery's homepage, is probably a crap example, but some staticky type site, and that's not personalized. But to the browser, it's just a web page. Both are just web pages. It doesn't care. Like they're both just a web page, right? So what we're trying to do is trying to say, obviously Facebook's not trying to sell you anything in that way. I mean, they're sending you personalized ads based off of the inputs you've given to them. I mean, that's what they're doing. Yeah. But we're trying to make it so the everyman or the every woman can say, I have a business. We sell stuff online. We generate leads online. I build my list online, whatever. I want to apply some of the things that work so well that I know if I'm at a conference and I'm speaking to somebody about my product or about the business I'm building or whatever, I'm going to take into account who they are when I convey to them. I want to do that, but I want it automatically done online. And that's the challenge that we're attempting to solve with this. So
yeah. Wow. Amazing. So I want you to tell everybody how, kind of where Write Messages at and how they could get going using it. But first, before we do that, do you have any tip or tool or piece of advice to give people that can help give them a futurist advantage?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the best things you can do is to make it so, like, the coma question keeps coming up, I think. And the coma question is basically, if you were to go and get hit by a bus, which I hope doesn't happen, and you go into a coma for a year, is your business still going to run? And I think for a lot of us, even though we like to say that we have, business independence, we're building automated businesses and so on. If you're still out there sending weekly newsletters and sending quarterly big pitches or something like that for your stuff, you really don't. Right? Like it's not a complete system in the sense that it works independent of you. So I would say, like, whatever you can do to make it so if you're writing an email or something like that it's going out to your entire list, ask yourself, is this something that is actually evergreen, I guess is the right word. Is this something that is actually an asset or a one-off? So I'm interested in building assets. Like I like the fact that I have all these systems now in my business that are truly assets in the sense that they have inputs and outputs. Outputs are hopefully money, inputs are leads, right? That should be the goal. That should be the goal, I think, for all of us. and figuring out what that takes for us to do, for us individually to do, or corporately, I should say, to do, to make that possible. Because I've worked with a lot of businesses, big and small, and a lot of them are still pretty, dare I say, unsophisticated when it comes to how they do this stuff. For a lot of them, it's just like they've got a newsletter and that's it. And then they use that newsletter to not send out educational stuff, but instead to send out my little winter light, but instead to send out, like a big pitch sequence or something that's trying to get them to buy. It's just, it's the thing I don't like is it's so based on the seller or the company's timeline, where, it doesn't matter if you joined the list yesterday or you joined a year ago, you're still getting pitched the same thing. You're getting the same content. The more we can put ourselves in the shoes of the new subscriber who just showed up and just met us, the more automated and the more personalized I think our stuff will get naturally. Because otherwise the alternative is, it is November 7th. I'm deciding to do a big launch right now for the next week. And I'm just going to broadcast it out to everyone and hope that it sticks enough that it makes it worthwhile. But it's a poor user experience, I think, when somebody is not ready to be pitched or is not ready to buy or is not understanding why they should buy, considering anything that you might know about them. So I really do think that the more you invest yourself in this, and I know I'm not really recommending a tool or product or anything like that, but I think that it's that mentality of thinking, automation and personalization are a side effect of wanting to be putting yourself more in the shoes of your customers. And that's it. So
I got to say something. Okay. So, this is just blowing me away and my brain can't quite keep up and formulate the words that I need to say. So I'm going to try. But so I know our audience, okay, the people who are going to be watching this, and what you're saying, what you just said, that amazing tip. And believe me, futurists in the audience, please hear what he just said and bring it down to where you are right now. So we have people who are freelancers or solopreneurs, and they are in their business, running it day in, day out, doing everything. And so what this will allow them to do is just to get the next rung up, okay, a little higher out of those weeds. And we have CEOs and investors and those kinds of people who will be able to use this and actually allow their business to run, like you said, the coma situation, the coma question, and be able to run more automated without them so that they can actually be the futurist, the innovator, the one thinking of the next thing, not actually having to run what's existing. Right?
It's a hamster wheel. I mean, that's kind of what it is you're sitting on a wheel of, I think a lot of people think that if you're not doing that, then you're just looking to have the nice, sitting on the beach with your Mai Tai and zoned out. It doesn't need to be that way. I mean, I've gotten off the hamster wheel of one business so I could start this new business, and I wouldn't be able to do this business like I'm doing it now had I needed to be on the hook of writing weekly emails just to nurture my audience, and then writing pitch emails so I can bring in revenue to, like, it's automating and personalizing has made it better for them. It's made it better for me, so I can focus on what I think is the next stage of, I guess, my career.
Right. Absolutely.
Wow.
So where can, if everybody is as sold with right message as you are, how can we get started, or where are things at with that? I know you're
so we actually have about 50 something customers right now, paying customers. So we're live. We've got companies you've heard of using us. So if you go to rightmessage.com and just enter in your email, depending on when this goes out, our plan is we're doing a big public launch with both partners and internally starting in January. So what we're doing right now is V1 of the product was very more meant for power users who get it. And we've actually we have a customer success person who works individually with all of our customers now to help them get all set up and basically do it all for them. It's like free consulting that we're offering, but it helps us better understand what people are doing with it and so on. But come January, we're shipping a completely new design product that's more meant for self-sign-up, self-serve, where people can go in and basically get set up all on their own. It's more objective-based instead of right now it's saying, here's the tool, good luck knowing what to do with it. Come January, the product is going to be more focused on what is it you want to achieve, and then it'll walk you through like basically how you use the product to help achieve that end goal. So we've been putting a lot of thought and design and working with the 50-ish customers we have now to really figure out what that needs to be. And we've done that, and now we're almost ready to the point of being able to open up the doors. But if you really like this now, and it's, again, I don't know when this goes live, but if you want for holiday sales or whatever, you want to like capitalize on this kind of stuff, we actually are bringing on 5 new customers a week, just so we get fresh blood moving through the system. So if you were to enter in your email and opt in, and then just email us and say, hey, heard about you on the Marketing Futurist show. I'd love to get on board. Here's why. We might be able to get you into the queue prior to our big launch.
Great. That's so exciting.
Yeah,
thank you.
That's craziness. I just can't even believe this. This is amazing. And obviously I really would love to have offline or later in another conversation, a conversation with you specifically, since you are doing this, about the social implications of this and how people are feeling about being followed around and understood and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'd love to chat with you about that, but that we'll save for another time.
Yeah, another
The
episode.
thing I can say, if you go to my site and it looks very specific to you, there's always incognito mode.
Yes.
I can't do anything about that, unfortunately.
There you go. I have a feeling I'm going to be basically surfing the net in incognito every single day.
See, but I'd also argue that there's a benefit. Like, why, if you're talking to a salesperson, I want them to know who I am.
Yeah.
I want them to recommend. I don't want to
get a product I don't need. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. You can do this negative. There's negative ways of doing this, right? But it can be used for good too.
Yeah. And as with any marketing tactic or tool, there's ways you can overdo it and completely blow it.
And that's what we've been talking about, though, Brennan. I really have to tell you, because most of the people we've been talking to, we have come on to those kinds of issues and said, this is really, because everyone is really putting their input into the personalization, and really that's the direction it's going, which is wonderful for many people, all businesses. But it also, all of our guests, like you, have understood that gives us a certain responsibility, and we really are taking that responsibility seriously. We're not going to sell this for evil and go to some foreign country, right?
Yeah.
We're going to use it for good, and we're going to protect it, and we're going to protect this knowledge and make sure that we're not damaging people or making people feel sleazy and all that kind of stuff. So we get it. And that is, we only are going to talk to those people, obviously.
And you should, yeah. I mean, there's the black hat and the white hat ways of doing anything, right?
Yeah.
And I look at this as being, again, a genuinely useful way of creating a better customer experience, right? I mean, it's a user experience improvement that happens, and any good UX improvement is going to result in more conversions and more sales.
Right.
It's another way of doing that. So. Right.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Brennan. You have provided so much value, and we are very excited to watch Right Message grow and change the internet, because I know it will.
I hope so, yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Get your Futurist advantage by joining our Facebook group at marketingfuturist.co/group, and tune in for our next journey into the future of marketing.